Okay, so today we're playing a little bit of a game, all right? Because we got to imagine that the CDL came up to me and said, hey, yo, Josh, do you want to be the commissioner of the CDL? And of course I'd say, yes, for the love of all things, please. We have a lot to change around here. And so today we're talking about what I would do if I was the commissioner of the CDL and was able to make every change with an unlimited budget, with the things that needed to be done, and we could get them done, what the ideal CDL would look like today. So this kind of came from a whole rant that I put out on Twitter yesterday. I don't know, I feel like right now overall we just need some positivity in the scene. So I thought it'd be fun to talk about the potential that the CDL has with some of these changes that could happen. So without further ado, it's already been long enough of an intro. Let's get right into this one and talk about the perfect CDL. Let's go. Long story short, the CDL has the best personalities in esports, and it's not close. And that's kind of what I tweeted last night. I'm like, yo, we gotta capitalize on the best personalities in esports. All of us want the CDL to be the biggest esports league in the world. We want competitive CoD to be the biggest esport in the world. And it starts with the personalities in the scene and maximizing it to its full potential. Back in the early days of the CWL, that was revolutionary. The access to the pros was revolutionary. Like in BO2, Ghost, AW, you did so many things that added access that was so unavailable in professional sports that it kind of blew people's minds, and it made the sport really relatable. And I think we've lost a lot of that over the years as it's become more professional. So a lot of these things that we're gonna be talking about here, and we're gonna be talking over the broadcast changes, format changes, and then changes to increase the drama and storylines of the league, kind of in that order. And all of these things are gonna be centered around creating more access, making it more unique and separate from normal sports, and making it stand out amongst current esports. And that's something that the UFC and like the WWE have done unbelievably well in a lot of different ways by highlighting the personalities in their sports, or in the WWE's case, their cast. And then like similarly, like that's why like Twitch streamers do so well, is because it's such a transparent event. And like Warzone, like, yeah, it does well because duh, the biggest personalities in the CDL are all playing in it. And so like Scump winning that $100,000 tournament, his genuine reaction was awesome. And like that like genuine, authentic, wholesome reaction is what people want to see. And we're missing out on a lot of that with competitive CoD and not embracing the things that originally made the esport so unique and special, dramatic and entertaining from the beginning. So that's kind of what we're aiming for with these changes. Off the rip, I want to talk about the simple changes to the broadcast. Then we'll get into some of the format, and then we'll get into some other things that can build into the storylines and drama of the league week to week. And of course, the AM scene, will talk about that in the format as well, and just breaking all those things down. So off the rip, the simple things with the broadcast that could just change this thing and make it easier off the rip. A lot of these things, of course, have to do with like YouTube and the limitations right now with the YouTube integration with streaming, which has been also a hurdle for the CDL versus some of the advanced like widgets and overlays that Twitch has available and the integration already that YouTube doesn't. The big thing that needs to happen is like player POVs. When you're watching a broadcast, you have to be able to see whatever player you want to watch play. And that's got to be like fundamental 101 thing that has to be available for esports. If you want to watch Scump, you should be able to watch Scump the whole time. And that's gotta be there. Second, more listen-ins and more like transparency and access to the players in game, either pre-match or after match. There has to be more access to the players and their actual in-game communications and some of the juice and spicy drama that can happen in those conversations. Obviously, I know they released some of the comms videos, which are fine and they're good and they're better than before, but like we just need overall more access. Like for example, the UFC, I know there's a competitive integrity aspect to like hearing pros comms and search and destroy, but like literally during like UFC or boxing, like coaches are hearing the other coaches giving coaching to their players during a fight. Like you're hearing their strategies. The UFC does mid-round listen-ins to the coaches and the feedback in those times. They're hearing real-time strategy of the pros, but at the same time, if everybody's comms are being heard throughout search and destroy at certain times, so it's a fair playing field, then like it doesn't really matter. It's happening to everybody, just like it is in the UFC. And people love that coach listen-ins and like the ability to hear the feedback in between rounds. And some of that talk, or at least mid-round communication, could be huge for search and destroy listen-ins, and I think it's something that needs to happen as well, just overall for competitive COD. So outside of like POVs and that type of stuff, and like the UI of the broadcast, which can always be improved, integrated statistics is definitely crucial, and having a more in-depth knowledge of the game and statistics. You know, you see like the statistics in football or baseball or basketball are insane. If you have Pro Football Focus and all these other websites who created their whole businesses around statistics in sports, and we need to get to a point where that's possible in esports as well. And so you should be able to click on a player, click on his stats, and get like a breakdown of some really impressive in-depth stats. And that needs to be UI that's available inside the game. And so those are talks obviously with the development team like Treyarch and, you know, all the devs, Sledgehammer. And that's gonna be huge in the future as well of esports. Okay, so now let's talk about the things that are most important. For sure, the format is crucial. Having a really engaging, interesting, and esportsy format that works for esports. And let's be honest, it's all built around major tournaments. Tournaments are what esports are and what esports fans understand, and it immediately separates itself away from the MLB, the NBA, the NHL, and even like the UFC and any other like normal mainstream events. Like people want to watch the playoffs in normal sports, and they want to watch the World Cup because they're tournaments. And golf has done a really, really good job of this throughout their time in maximizing a tournament format. And so I think if we could look more towards golf and how they embrace their golf community and have their major tournaments throughout the year. First of all, I would use all my power as a commissioner, every ounce of weight and leverage I have to make sure that league play or rank play was at launch of COD every single year. I mean, that's a crucial, integral part of an esport and needs to be there. And so I would use whatever leverage I have. And if it takes me, you know, getting crazy, getting dirty, I would get my hands dirty to make sure that this thing happens, to make sure we get a league play or rank play at launch at the beginning of every year. But besides that, for format specifically, like let's say you have 5 normal majors, then you have 1 mid-season US Open, which is crucial. You have to have the amateurs playing against the pros. So this is like a similar CWL format to the past, where you have a massive open bracket, and then the top X amount of teams, either top 4, top 8, top 12, play against the pro players in a big bracket style tournament. And then I'd have like what used to be the CWL playoffs, where you do league play matches that translate into a top 4 or top 6 that qualifies for a bracket in the playoffs to win. So that'd be another major. And so in total, 7 majors. What's crucial is that the first one is the first weekend of December every single year, no matter what. Just like in the PGA, like you have these marquee tournaments throughout the year that everybody knows the name of, like the Masters. You know, everyone knows the Masters, like hello, obviously. Not to mention, I'd love if some of these events had different types of formats where like, just like in the PGA, sometimes you have match play majors, you'll have match play tournaments, you'll have different formats where you're playing, like the Ryder Cup is USA versus Britain. Like there's fun, interesting new formats that keeps things fresh. And I would love to see something like that for the CDL as well, where sometimes it's a single elimination bracket, winner takes all, like really weird formats, or you have different quirky rules that are in place. Like, I don't know. This is obviously just off the top of my head, like, you know, each team has to use 2 snipers in search and destroy, or like, you know, different types of weird quirky rules. Maybe 1 tournament per year, you have full on listen-ins where the whole tournament pros know that they're going to be heard the whole time. Like weird quirky things like that just create for interesting, unique experiences for the fans. But also you still have a consistent schedule where, you know, once per month there's going to be a major tournament. Not just that, but you'd have 7 majors. All right, so that's 1 per month. December, January, February, March, April, May, June, leading into COD Champs in July, which is obviously a massive tournament with the best amateur teams qualified. And we're going to talk about the amateur teams here in a second, but the biggest key is that all CDL teams would be forced to have a challengers team, and that would be crucial for this format. So then the top 4 or 6 of those amateur teams are qualified for COD Champs at the end of the year. And that creates for the biggest, massive, the Masters tournament of the year for the sport, obviously, an insane overall situation. And I think in an ideal world, Champs is held in the same venue at the same time, you know, in the same place every single year. So people know that like, yo, we need to migrate to Los Angeles for Champs every single year in July, like last weekend of July 29th or whatever it is, every single year. After that, And you're wondering like, well, what's going to happen between August, September, and October? The World Cup. The World Cup is happening every single year where you get the best players from every single country in the world. And we saw some posts from here, like from CDL Intel and others, where you can get upwards of like 20 countries that have like legit scenes at this point, that have built out rosters in the amateur scene. Like you can get a good amount of countries in this thing. And that would be an epic tournament. You get weird, quirky rosters, which is perfect because it's roster mania time. And also the major tournaments. There's obviously a point qualification system that determines the seeding for CoD champs and, you know, how that plays out for the seeding and all of that, where the pro teams, of course, get the top 12 seeds at CoD champs, but that's all determined by the average placings and points that are earned throughout the year from the major tournaments. So now, as for Challengers specifically, Challengers is a crucial part of the long-term growth of the esport. So we would need some sort of Challengers updates at all times throughout broadcasts throughout the year. Like, this is just a basic 101 top thing I wanted to mention here. Like, you have updates, you have interviews with the best amateur players throughout all of the events as like intermediate break time filler content. The UFC does this insanely well, where they have, you know, player profiles of up and coming fighters always playing during the biggest tournaments of the, or the biggest fights of the year, like the Conor McGregor fights or the Khabib fights or whoever it is, you know, the Kamaru Usman, the Francis Ngannous, they're all fighting. And then you have the Sugar Sean O'Malley's, the up and coming fighters, their profiles on the biggest cards, and they're fighting on the undercards of those fights. Not to mention you're building the profiles of your biggest amateur players. The same light, you're doing your best to integrate the finals or the semifinals, the biggest matches of the amateur scene, into the finals and the big time broadcasts of the CDL to create and build your future stars in the league. So as for the format of the AM scene specifically, again, like I said, require all the CDL teams to have an amateur challengers team. Then you have the Challengers Pro League or the Elite Series, like what we had this year, but with all of the 12 CDL teams involved. Just like the CWL in the past, you're basically using that format for the amateur scene now. So you have the open bracket, where the top 4 teams that aren't currently CDL Challengers teams qualify to play against the amateur pros, or I guess the Elite Series teams, the Challengers teams, in a Challengers Elite Series, where you have the top 16 amateur teams competing on a regular basis. And then in a similar light as last year, there'd be also a scouting series near the beginning of the season as well, where, you know, we were on the right track last year with the CDL, but this needs to be an official event with like a small prize pool for the amateur players. And I'd want one pro player to captain a roster of amateur players, as well the coaches, and then the one pro captain draft a team to play with, and then those teams compete for an actual prize pool to help build those names at the beginning of the season that you're going to be getting to know throughout the year, and you're building all of it together to create for more drama. All right, so speaking of drama, the last section here is just some things I wanted to do to increase the drama in the league. We need more player on player press conferences, just like in the past. Again, this is something that they did great in BO2, back in Ghost and AW. Like there's the iconic scene with Courage and then Nadeshot and Aches when Aches was on FaZe, and obviously that whole thing during AW. Like we need more of that, and like more where you have Scump on one side, you have Crim on the other. And then I think the person asking the questions is crucial here. It needs to be somebody that the pros are comfortable with, but also somebody who the interviewer is comfortable with the pros and asking the pressing questions. So I'd say there's no one better than Zuma to be the one interviewing the pros every time, because he's gonna get the juiciest, most interesting hype drama, and you're gonna have Zuma moderating a little conversation between like Scump and Crim, or, you know, whoever it is, and creating that drama for the fans. And that is desperately needed. Not that, like, you know, a lot of the interviewers don't do a good job right now, but they're not connected to the pro players, and the pro players are the ones creating the drama and driving the viewership for the scene. People would be excited for those interviews, and you wouldn't want to miss them because something juicy could go down. And that's important for maintaining viewership, creating excitement, and creating drama and storylines throughout the season. Same note, after a match or a win, teams do press conferences. We saw this a little bit with Dallas at the kickoff event, and it was dope. Like, you got to see like their real, like, right after the match reactions as a team. I think that was really, really cool. And again, the more just availability to the players. Like whatever normal sports does, we need to do like a 3x of to make the sport more relatable and easier to get a hold of and understand and get to know the players and the personalities and maximize that in our scene. So more press conferences, more post-game interviews right after they play to get raw emotions from the full team. So the final two things here that come to mind would be like, I don't know how you do this specifically, but having like a public commissioner, I do think helps a lot. Like with like the Dana White situation in the UFC, like, you know, love him or hate him, he creates drama himself, and having that like staple or that face of the league is really, really important. And it creates less reliance on the players themselves. Like people thought the UFC might be in trouble when Conor McGregor kind of slipped out of relevance, but we've seen that it's gotten more popular even after Conor has become less of a superstar, at least less of a dominant athlete. So, you know, these types of things, because like you have the stability of Dana White and Joe Rogan as the personalities of the UFC, you can actually use them to build the hype and build the profiles of the players. And that generates the overall interest in the scene versus relying on Scump to be the face of the sport. So hopefully we can siphon off some of the entertainment from Scump and bring that into Merc, Maven, and Miles and Chance and all of the casters, you know, this year and hang out in the future. And then also into the ownership groups and the more that Hex and the owners and the identities of the teams and then the league itself, and have more of that public facing conversation with the league. Because right now it feels like the CDL is trying to hide in the shadows. And I don't think that format works well at all. You want a face of the league to come out and consistently address the fans and be someone that the fans love to embrace and get around, and they can help drive the interest in the scene themselves. That's the best way to do it 100%, especially for an esport or for really any sport as a whole. If you have a commissioner people love, that's a huge advantage. Then the final like small thing here would just be, I want an official award show at the end of the year. I want an ESPYs. I want what, you know, the NFL or the NBA or any big time league does. You have all-stars, you have not just fan voted, but like quite literally official NBA all team. You have the NFL, the first team All-Americans in college football. Like you want an official, like these were the best players as decided by the league, as decided by the people who know the scene the best. Those things become official. So you want like rookie of the year, you want MVP, the comeback player of the year, the most underrated player of the year, like the SMG, the AR of the year, all of these things, the coach of the year, the organization of the year, all not just like some like ho-hum award show that was voted by the fans that nobody's going to care about, but you want like an established, like a decided, like, all right, this is it. Not just MVP, but you want more awards and actually like put on an event that can kind of celebrate the whole season and feels like good closure to the year. Like the fact that we didn't get like a rookie of the year officially announced this year, like, bro, how are we dropping the ball on this stuff? And it's blowing my mind. So not to mention the offseason, there'd be a lot more content coming from the CDL. There would be off-season events that'd be weird, quirky, fun events that could still generate hype and be something that the fans could watch. So like smaller prize pools, but like maybe like a $20,000 tournament of teams that where you have to use a snipe, you have to use like 2 snipers in S&D, or you have to use designated guns, or you're playing on all non-CDL maps. Just weird things that create at least a little bit of off-season hype and some fun things that fans can enjoy in the off-season. Overall, more league content, like the campaign at the beginning of the first season of the CDL. Like you need more overall league content that follows teams and storylines and builds that hype as well. So there it is, guys. If I was the commissioner of the CDL, that's what we do. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was just kind of like something that I feel like I needed to get off my chest. Things that are just feel like just obvious, like let's build this thing together type situations. I want the CDL, listen to me. I want the CDL to be the biggest freaking esport in the world. I want nothing more than the CDL to be the biggest thing that's ever existed in all of entertainment. And so I hope we can all do that together and build this thing together. And if anybody's listening to the CDL offices, hopefully you take a few of these things and make them happen, because I'd love to see it. But I appreciate you guys. Drop all your comments down below with your thoughts, your ideas, your opinions, and anything that I missed. I'm sure I missed something. I'm sure I missed a lot of things. So drop all your ideas down below for things that could improve the CDL. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like, comment, subscribe, share the video if you guys really enjoyed it. But as always, guys, I'm your boy SalvationsElite, and we'll see you next time. I'm out.